Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. The alarm clock's harsh shriek jolted Amelia Carter from her dreams at 4:30 a.m., tearing her away from the few precious hours of sleep she managed between studying and working. Her amber eyes fluttered open, already stinging with exhaustion. But she forced herself upright in the narrow twin bed that had been hers since childhood. The small bedroom she shared with her younger sister was cramped but overflowing with love. Family photos covering every surface, medical textbooks stacked in towering piles, and her sister's colorful artwork carefully taped to the walls. Amelia's reflection in the cracked mirror revealed the toll of her relentless schedule. Her warm brown skin, usually radiant with health and determination, appeared dull and stressed. Dark circles shadowed her expressive eyes, and her thick curly hair was twisted into a messy bun. At 22, she should have been glowing with youth, but the weight of her dreams and constant struggle to achieve them had aged her beyond her years. She dressed quickly in her cafe uniform, a simple white blouse and dark pants worn nearly every day for 2 years. The fabric was beginning to fray, but she couldn't afford new clothes when every penny went toward medical school tuition. As she tiptoed through the small apartment, she paused outside her parents' bedroom door, hearing her father's soft snores and her mother's gentle breathing. These two people had sacrificed everything for her dream of becoming a doctor, working multiple shifts, selling their few possessions, going without so she could have textbooks and lab fees. The morning air was crisp as Amelia walked 15 blocks downtown, unable to afford bus fare. She'd made this journey countless times, her feet knowing every crack in the sidewalk, every shortcut through narrow alleys. The cafe sat on a busy corner, its windows already glowing with warm light as early customers gathered. "You're late," snapped Victor before Amelia had even tied her apron. His cold eyes ran over her with obvious disdain. At 35, Victor Langston was a bitter man who seemed to take pleasure in making his employees miserable, especially Amelia. She'd noticed how he spoke differently to her than other workers, his voice dripping with condescension and barely concealed prejudice. "I'm actually 3 minutes early," Amelia replied quietly, checking the wall clock. She'd learned to document everything with this man, knowing he looked for any excuse to dock her pay. Victor's face reddened. "Don't get smart with me. Get to work and try not to screw anything up today." Amelia bit her tongue and moved to the espresso machine, her hands steady despite the anger simmering in her chest. She'd endured Victor's casual cruelty for 2 years because she desperately needed this job. The $300 she earned weekly, combined with her weekend library shifts, barely covered expenses, but it kept her dream alive. The morning rush began, and Amelia lost herself in the familiar rhythm of taking orders, pulling shots, and steaming milk. She genuinely enjoyed serving the regular customers, the elderly man who always ordered a simple black coffee and shared stories about his late wife, the young mother who came in exhausted but always managed a grateful smile, the college students cramming for exams just like her. These moments of human connection made the long hours bearable. Around 11, when the crowd had thinned, an older woman approached the counter looking confused and upset. "Mrs." Sophia Moretti was a regular customer, usually sharp as a tack despite her 78 years. But today she seemed lost. "I can't find my purse, Mrs." Moretti said, her voice shaking slightly. "I always put it right here in my bag, but it's gone. I must have left it at home, but I already ordered my coffee and scone." Amelia's heart went out to the woman immediately. "Don't worry about it, Mrs. Moretti. It happens to everyone. Your coffee is on the house today." No, I couldn't. Please, I insist. And here, take this scone too. You need to keep your strength up." Amelia packaged the woman's usual order with a warm smile, paying for it herself from her tip jar. "Mrs." Moretti's eyes filled with grateful tears. "You're an angel, dear. Thank you so much." But their exchange didn't go unnoticed. Victor had been watching from across the cafe, and as soon as Mrs. Moretti left, he stormed over with fury blazing in his eyes. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, grabbing Amelia's arm roughly. "You just gave away product without authorization. She's an elderly, regular customer who forgot her purse," Amelia explained calmly, though her heart was racing. I paid for it myself from my tips. I was just being kind. Kind? Victor laughed harshly. This is a business, not a charity. And I don't care if you paid for it. You don't have the authority to make those decisions. You're just a coffee girl who thinks she's better than everyone else because she goes to college. The dismissive way he said college made Amelia's blood boil. She'd worked herself to exhaustion for years to earn her place in medical school, studying until her eyes burned, taking every extra shift available, sacrificing social events and sleep, and sometimes even meals. Her dreams weren't just personal ambitions. They were her chance to lift her family out of poverty and help other people the way she wished someone could help them. I was trying to provide good customer service, Amelia said, her voice steady but with steel underneath. Mrs. Moretti has been coming here for 3 years. She's never caused any trouble, and she was genuinely distressed. Sometimes being human is more important than following every rule to the letter. Victor's face turned an alarming shade of purple. Are you lecturing me about how to run my business? You're nothing but a waitress with delusions of grandeur. You think because you're in medical school that makes you special. Well, let me tell you something. That's enough. Amelia's voice cut through his tirade like a blade. She'd reached her breaking point after years of his casual cruelty and constant disrespect. I am not nothing. I work harder than anyone else in this cafe. I treat every customer with respect, and I've never missed a shift or shown up late. If treating an elderly woman with kindness is grounds for punishment in your establishment, then maybe you need to reconsider what kind of business you're running. The cafe had gone dead silent. Other customers were staring, some with their phones out, recording the confrontation. Victor's hands were shaking with rage, and Amelia realized she'd finally gone too far. You're fired. He spat. Get out of my cafe and don't come back, and don't expect any references from me. Amelia felt the world tilt around her. Those 2 words, you're fired, hit her like a physical blow. This job wasn't just income, it was her lifeline. Without it, she couldn't make her final tuition payment. Without that payment, she'd be dropped from medical school just 3 months before graduation. With trembling hands, she untied her apron and laid it on the counter. The other employees watched in shocked silence as she gathered her things, their faces reflecting sympathy and fear for their own jobs. Amelia walked to the door with her head held high, but the moment she stepped outside, her composure crumbled completely. She made it 2 blocks before the sobs overtook her. Ducking into an alley, Amelia slid down the brick wall until she was sitting on the cold concrete, her whole body shaking with the force of her grief. Everything she'd worked for, sacrificed for, dreamed of it, was all slipping away because she'd shown kindness to an elderly woman. The numbers swirled in her head like a nightmare. Tuition deadline tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. Amount needed $8,400. Money in her account, $237. Her parents had already borrowed against everything they owned. There was nowhere left to turn. Amelia pulled out her phone with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, staring at her father's contact. How could she call him? How could she tell him that after everything he and her mother had sacrificed, she was going to lose it all because of her pride? The man had worked 3 jobs to help pay for her education, and her mother cleaned offices until midnight to contribute what she could. But what choice did she have? In 29 hours, her dreams would die unless she found a miracle. Through her tears, Amelia began to type the most difficult message of her life. Chapter 2. A message that changes everything. Amelia's fingers trembled as she stared at her phone screen, tears blurring her vision. The cold concrete of the alley pressed against her back, but she barely felt it through the numbness that had settled over her like a heavy blanket. In less than 24 hours, her entire future would crumble unless she could find a miracle. The weight of her family's sacrifices pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She scrolled through her contacts until she found Dad and stared at the name for a long moment. William Carter had worked 3 jobs to help fund her education, driving for a delivery service during the day, stocking shelves at a grocery store in the evenings, and cleaning office buildings on weekends. Her mother, Grace, worked as a home health aide and cleaned houses on her days off. Both of them had given up everything they could possibly sacrifice, and Amelia knew they had nothing left to give. But what choice did she have? With shaking hands, she began to type, her heart breaking with every word. Dad, I'm so sorry to burden you with this, but I don't know where else to turn. I lost my job today because I stood up to my manager when he was treating people badly. The tuition deadline is tomorrow at 5 o'clock p.m. $8,400, and I only have $230 in my account. I know you and Mom have already given everything, and I hate myself for even asking, but I don't know what else to do. My dreams are dying, Dad. Everything we've worked for, everything you've sacrificed, I'm going to lose it all. I've tried everywhere. Financial aid, emergency loans, everything. There's nothing left. I'm so scared, and I feel lost. I love you both so much, and I'm sorry for being such a burden. I understand if there's nothing you can do. I just needed to tell someone who loves me that I tried my best. Amelia's vision was so blurred with tears that she could barely see the screen. Her thumb hovered over the send button for several seconds as she gathered courage to break her father's heart. Finally, she pressed send and immediately buried her face in her hands, sobbing with the force of a dam breaking. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, in his glass-walled corner office on the 42nd floor of Bennett Tower in downtown Seattle, Nathan Bennett sat in a leather chair worth more than most people's cars, staring out at the city skyline with empty eyes. At 30, he was worth $4, $2 billion, and commanded an empire spanning technology, real estate, and renewable energy. His sharp jawline and slate-blue eyes had graced magazine covers, and his rare public appearances sent stock prices soaring. But none of it meant anything anymore. The boardroom behind him was filled with executives discussing quarterly projections and market expansion, their voices a distant hum that he'd stopped listening to an hour ago. These meetings had become a meaningless routine, wealthy men in expensive suits moving numbers around to make more numbers, all of them desperate for his approval, but none of them truly knowing him. Nathan's childhood had been spent in boarding schools while his parents built their own empire, leaving him with a trust fund instead of affection and stock portfolios instead of bedtime stories. He'd inherited their business acumen, but not their coldness, which left him isolated in a world where everyone wanted something from him. Women approached him for his money, men sought his influence, and genuine connections felt impossible when everyone had an agenda. His phone buzzed with what he assumed was another meaningless business message. He almost ignored it, but something made him glance at the screen. The number was unfamiliar, and the preview showed text that began with, "Dad, I'm so sorry." Curious, despite himself, Nathan opened the message and began to read. By the second sentence, his breath caught in his throat. By the end, something inside his chest had cracked wide open. Here was raw, desperate honesty, unlike anything he'd encountered in his sterile world of corporate speak and calculated politeness. This wasn't someone asking for an investment or trying to impress him with a business proposal. This was a young woman pouring her heart out to her father, sharing her fears and dreams with such vulnerable honesty that it made Nathan's throat tight. He read the message 3 times, each word hitting him like a physical blow. The pain in those sentences was so palpable, he could feel it radiating from his phone screen. Someone out there was watching their dreams die despite working harder than anyone in his boardroom ever had. Someone who stood up for what was right, even when it cost them everything. Everything we've worked for, everything you've sacrificed. Those words echoed in Nathan's mind. When was the last time anyone had sacrificed anything for him that wasn't motivated by profit? When had anyone ever worked that hard for a dream that didn't involve taking something from someone else? Mr. Bennett, his assistant's voice cut through his thoughts. The board is ready for your input on the Beijing acquisition. Nathan looked up at the room full of expectant faces, men who would step over their own mothers for a percentage point of profit margin. Then he looked back at his phone at this message from someone who had lost everything because she'd shown kindness to an elderly woman. "Excuse me for a moment," he said, standing abruptly and walking out of the boardroom. The executives exchanged confused glances, but Nathan didn't care. For the first time in months, something mattered more than their endless pursuit of additional zeros in their bank accounts. In his private office, Nathan sat at his desk and pulled up his banking app. His fingers hovered over the screen as he reread the message. Ba. Seabay. It was less than what he spent on a single dinner at his usual restaurant. It was pocket change, meaningless in the context of his wealth. But to this young woman, Amelia, he noticed from the contact information, it was everything. The pain in her words reminded him of his own darkest moments. The nights in boarding school when he'd cried himself to sleep, feeling abandoned and unloved. The years of building his empire while feeling completely empty inside. Successful by every measure, except the only one that mattered. He told himself that loneliness was the price of success, but reading Amelia's message made him realize how desperately he longed for the kind of genuine love she described with her family. I just needed to tell someone who loves me that I tried my best. When was the last time someone had loved Nathan for who he was rather than what he could provide? When had anyone ever been proud of him simply for trying his best? Without allowing himself to overthink it, Nathan initiated a wire transfer. He typed in Amelia's account information, visible from her message signature, and entered the amount, $8,400. Then he paused, his finger hovering over the confirmation button. This was insane. He was about to send money to a complete stranger, based on a mistaken text message. His lawyers would have him committed. His board of directors would question his sanity. Every rational part of his mind screamed that this was foolish. But for the first time in years, Nathan wasn't listening to the rational part of his mind. He was listening to the part that recognized something pure and genuine when he saw it. The part that was tired of living in a world where everything had a price and nothing had value. He pressed confirm. The transfer went through immediately, and Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in longer than he could remember. Satisfaction that had nothing to do with profit margins or quarterly reports. Somewhere out there, a young woman's dreams were about to be saved. Someone who deserved good things was about to receive them, not because of who she knew or what she could offer in return, but simply because she needed help, and he could provide it. Nathan leaned back in his chair and looked out at the city skyline again. But this time it looked different. The glass and steel towers no longer seemed like monuments to isolation, but possibilities for connection. For the first time in months, he was eager to see what happened next. He'd always believed that money couldn't buy happiness, but maybe, just maybe, it could buy something even better. Maybe it could buy hope for someone who deserved it more than anyone he'd ever met. Nathan saved Amelia's number in his phone, though he told himself he'd probably never use it again. This was a one-time gesture, a moment of impulse that would fade back into his routine of meetings and mergers. But deep in his chest, something had awakened, something that wanted to know more about the young woman who signed her message with so much love, who worked multiple jobs to chase a dream of helping others, who lost everything because she'd shown kindness to a stranger. For the first time in years, Nathan Bennett was genuinely curious about another human being. And that curiosity was about to change both their lives forever. Chapter 3. When hearts recognize each other, Amelia barely slept that night, tossing restlessly as anxiety churned in her stomach. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the clock ticking toward 5 o'clock p.m. He saw her dreams slipping away with each passing second. When her phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. with a banking notification, she almost ignored it. Probably another reminder about her pathetically low balance, but something made her check anyway. Her heart stopped. The screen showed a deposit of $8,400 posted at 11:23 p.m. the previous night. Amelia blinked hard. Certain she was hallucinating from stress and exhaustion, she closed the app and reopened it. The number remained, glowing like a miracle. "Oh my God," she whispered, hands beginning to shake. "Oh my God." She shot up in bed, nearly waking her sister, and crept out on trembling legs. Her parents' bedroom door was closed, but she could hear her father's alarm. He had an early delivery shift. Amelia paced the small living room, staring at her phone, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Dad had done it. Somehow, impossibly, her father had found the money. He must have taken another loan, borrowed against something else, maybe asked his brother for help, despite their strained relationship. The thought of what this sacrifice might have cost him made Amelia's chest tight with guilt and overwhelming gratitude. When William Carter emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, already dressed in his delivery uniform, he found his daughter waiting with tears streaming down her face. "Daddy," Amelia whispered, throwing her arms around him with such force that he stumbled backward. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I can't believe you found a way. I know what this must have cost you and Mom. And I promise I'll pay back every penny. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to." "Slow down, baby girl." William held his daughter at arm's length, his weathered face creased with confusion. "What are you talking about?" "The money," Amelia said, wiping her eyes. The tuition payment. Dad, you saved my life. You saved my dreams. William's confusion deepened. Amelia, honey, what money? I got your text last night, and it broke my heart. But, baby, we don't have that kind of money. Your mother and I talked for hours trying to figure out something, anything. But you sent me $8,400 last night. Amelia interrupted, holding up her phone. Look, it's right here, posted at 11:23 p.m. William took the phone and stared at the screen, his eyes widening. Amelia, I didn't send this. I don't even know how to make a bank transfer that large. And even if I did, we don't have this money. The words hit Amelia like ice water. If her father hadn't sent the money, then who? With growing dread, she opened her text messages and scrolled to the conversation from the night before. She'd been so distraught, so blinded by tears, that she hadn't double-checked the number. Now, looking at it with clear eyes, she saw the horrifying truth. The number was wrong. She'd missed a digit in her panic, and her desperate, heartbroken message had gone to a complete stranger. Oh no, Amelia breathed, sinking onto the couch as the full magnitude of her mistake hit her. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. What is it, baby? Dad, I sent that message to the wrong number. Amelia's voice was barely audible. Some stranger just sent me $8,400 because they thought I was asking them for help. William sat down beside his daughter, his face grave. We have to return it immediately. I know, Amelia said, though the words felt like swallowing glass. Returning the money meant watching her dreams die all over again, but keeping money that didn't belong to her was unthinkable. Her parents had raised her better than that. With shaking fingers, Amelia initiated the transfer to return the money, then began typing what felt like the most mortifying message of her life. I am so incredibly sorry. I cannot even begin to express how embarrassed and horrified I am right now. Last night, I was trying to text my father about my financial situation, but in my distress, I somehow sent it to your number by mistake. I have immediately returned your money. I never meant to bother you or ask a stranger for help. I was emotional and panicked and made a terrible error. Thank you for your kindness to a stranger, but I cannot and will not accept money that isn't meant for me. Again, I am so very sorry for disturbing you. Please forgive my mistake. She read the message 3 times, making sure it struck the right tone of humility and gratitude without seeming like she was fishing for the money back. Finally, she hit send and immediately put her phone face down on the coffee table, too mortified to look at it. You did the right thing, William said, putting his arm around his daughter's shoulders. I'm proud of you for returning it, even though I know how much it hurt. Amelia nodded, not trusting her voice. She had done the right thing, but it felt like carving out her own heart. She was right back where she started worse, actually, because now she'd humiliated herself in front of a stranger who'd only been trying to help. 3,000 miles away, Nathan was having his first peaceful morning in months. He'd slept better than he had in weeks, waking up with an unfamiliar sense of anticipation. The memory of Amelia's message and his impulsive gesture made him feel more alive than any business deal ever had. He was reviewing reports over coffee when his phone chimed with a banking notification. Amelia Carter had returned his money transfer, every penny of it. Nathan stared at the notification in disbelief. In his world, money flowed in one direction toward him. People asked for investments, for loans, for handouts, but no one ever returned money he'd freely given. The gesture was so unexpected, so contrary to everything he'd experienced, that he had to read the notification twice to believe it. Then came her message. Nathan read it once, then immediately read it again. The tone was so different from her first message, formal where the other had been raw, apologetic where the other had been desperate. But underneath the careful politeness, he could sense the same genuine heart that had moved him so deeply the night before. She'd returned money she desperately needed because she believed it was the right thing to do. In a world where people would sue their own grandmothers for stock options, Amelia Carter had given back a fortune because it wasn't rightfully hers. Nathan found himself smiling for the first time in weeks. He began typing his response, choosing each word carefully. Please don't apologize. Your message last night was the most genuine thing I've read in years. I sent that money because I wanted to help someone who clearly deserved it, not because I was obligated to. Mistakes happen, but your character shines through in how you've handled this. Keep the money. When you're able, when you're ready, you can pay it forward to someone else who needs help. Focus on your dreams for now." He paused before adding, "Also, once upon a time, I was lost, too. I know how it feels to have no one believe in you. Sometimes we all need someone to believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves." Nathan hit send before he could second-guess himself. He'd revealed more to this stranger in a few sentences than he had to anyone in years. Something about Amelia's honesty had unlocked a part of him he'd thought was permanently sealed away. When Amelia's phone buzzed 20 minutes later, she was helping her mother prepare breakfast, trying to act normal despite the fact that her world was crumbling. She glanced at the phone reluctantly, expecting maybe a formal acknowledgement of her apology. Instead, she found something that made her breath catch. "Mom," Amelia called softly, her voice filled with wonder. "You need to read this." Grace Carter dried her hands on a dish towel and came to read over her daughter's shoulder. By the end of the message, both women had tears in their eyes. "He wants you to keep it," Grace whispered. "This stranger wants you to keep the money." "But I can't," Amelia said, though her heart was racing with hope. "I can't accept charity from someone I don't even know." "Baby," her mother said gently, "sometimes angels come in unexpected forms. This person isn't asking for anything in return. They just want to help you achieve your dreams." Amelia read the message again, focusing on the last part. "I was lost, too. I know how it feels to have no one believe in you." Whoever this person was, they understood pain. They understood what it felt like to be alone and struggling. And somehow, through her desperate mistake, she connected with someone who wanted to help, simply because they could. For the first time since yesterday's disaster, Amelia felt something besides despair. She felt hope and curiosity. Who was this mysterious person who had shown such incredible kindness to a stranger? She began typing her response, her heart pounding with each word. "I don't know what to say except thank you. Your kindness means more than you'll ever know, not just the money, but your words. It's been a long time since someone told me they believed in me. I promise I'll pay it forward when I'm able. And someday, when I'm Dr. Amelia Carter, I'll make sure your faith in me wasn't misplaced." She hesitated, then added, "Can I ask your name? I'd like to know who my guardian angel is." This time, Amelia didn't put her phone face down. She held it in her hands, staring at the screen, waiting for a response from the stranger who was changing her life. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she found herself genuinely curious about what would happen next. Chapter 4. Souls on Fire. "My name is Nathan," came the response an hour later. "And you're going to be an incredible doctor, Amelia. I can feel it." Amelia stared at the simple message, but something about it made her pulse quicken in a way she couldn't explain. Just her name from his fingers felt intimate somehow. She found herself wondering what his voice sounded like. What kind of person chose to help a stranger without expecting anything in return? "Nathan," she typed back, testing out his name. "Thank you for believing in me. Can I ask what you do? I feel like I should know something about the person who saved my dreams." The response took longer this time, and Amelia found herself checking her phone every few minutes, eager for his reply, in a way that surprised her. "I work in technology and investments. Nothing as meaningful as medicine." "What made you want to become a doctor?" Amelia smiled at the deflection. Nathan seemed as reluctant to discuss himself as he was generous with others. She settled into her narrow bed, pulling her knees to her chest as she typed a response. "When I was 12, my grandmother had a stroke. The doctor in the ER was this incredible woman, Dr. Lopez. She was brilliant and kind, and she held my hand while explaining what was happening in words I could understand. She saved my grandmother's life. But more than that, she made me feel less scared and helpless. I want to be that person for someone else's family." "That's beautiful. Your grandmother was lucky to have you there." "She passed away last year," Amelia admitted, surprised by how easy it was to share something so personal with this stranger. "But I know she'd be proud of where I am now. She always said I had healing hands. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm certain she'd be incredibly proud. What's been the hardest part of medical school?" And just like that, they were talking, really talking in a way Amelia hadn't experienced with anyone in years. Nathan asked thoughtful questions and gave responses that showed he was truly listening. Their conversation flowed from her studies to his work, from their families to their dreams, each message building a bridge between their vastly different worlds. "What's it like being in technology?" Amelia asked late that first evening. "It must be exciting to be part of innovation." "It can be," Nathan replied. "But sometimes I feel like I'm solving problems that don't really matter, making rich people richer, creating solutions for problems that only exist because we have too much money and too little purpose. Your work will actually save lives." "But technology connects people," Amelia pointed out. "It gives people access to information, opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. That matters too. I never thought of it that way. You have a gift for seeing the good in things. And you have a gift for helping people. Not everyone would have done what you did for me. Maybe I was just being selfish. Helping you made me feel more useful than anything I've done in years." Amelia found herself smiling at her phone, charmed by his honesty. There was something so genuine about Nathan, so different from the guys at school who seemed to be performing masculinity rather than just being themselves. The days passed in a blur of classes and constant texting. Amelia would wake up to messages from Nathan, sharing thoughts he'd had during his evening or asking about her day ahead. She'd respond between lectures, finding herself eager to share even the smallest details of her life with him. During boring seminars, she'd draft longer messages about her thoughts on healthcare policy or her dreams for the future, and Nathan would respond with insights that showed he understood not just her words, but the passion behind them. "I had the most amazing surgery observation today," Amelia texted one afternoon. "A cardiac surgeon repaired a child's heart defect, and it was like watching magic. The precision, the knowledge, the way everyone worked together to save this little boy's life. I've never wanted anything more than I want to be part of that world. The way you describe it makes me want to watch too. You make everything sound beautiful. What makes you feel that way? What gives you that sense of purpose?" The question seemed to catch Nathan off guard because his response took longer than usual. "Honestly, until a few weeks ago, I would have said nothing. I've been going through the motions for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be excited about anything. But talking to you, it reminds me that there are still good people in the world doing meaningful work. You're good people too, Nathan. You changed my entire life because you saw someone in pain and decided to help. That says everything about who you are. You give me too much credit. I don't think I give you enough." Their conversations grew deeper as the weeks passed. Nathan shared stories about his lonely childhood, the boarding schools where he'd learned to be self-sufficient but never learned to truly connect with others. Amelia told him about growing up in a house full of love but empty of money, about the way her parents' sacrifices motivated her to work harder than everyone around her. "Do you ever feel guilty about your success?" Amelia asked one evening. "Like maybe you don't deserve it when other people struggle so much?" "Every day," Nathan admitted. "I inherited most of my opportunities. You've earned every single one of yours. But you could have been entitled and selfish with those opportunities. Instead, you help people like me. That's a choice, not an accident. You're going to make me believe I'm actually a good person if you keep this up. You are a good person. I can tell in the way you write, the questions you ask, the way you really listen to the answers. When was the last time someone told you that?" Again, a long pause. "I honestly can't remember." Amelia's heart ached for him. She was beginning to understand that beneath his success and generosity, Nathan was just as lonely as she had been desperate. They were both missing something essential. She had love but lacked opportunity, while he had every opportunity but felt starved for genuine connection. "Well, I'm telling you now," she typed. "You're kind, thoughtful, generous, and incredibly easy to talk to. Any person would be lucky to have you in their life. Even a brilliant medical student who's going to change the world." Amelia stared at that message for a long time, her heart racing. Was he flirting with her? The thought sent electricity through her veins in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. "Especially her," she finally replied, surprised by her own boldness. "Amelia, yes, I know this is crazy, but I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to talk to someone the way I talk to you." Amelia's breath caught. She read the message 3 times, each reading making her heart beat faster. She was falling for him. This man she'd never met, whose face she'd never seen, whose voice she'd never heard. Somehow, through nothing but words on a screen, he'd found his way into her heart. "It's not crazy." She typed with trembling fingers. "I feel it too, like you understand parts of me that I never even understood myself. I want to know everything about you. Your favorite color, what makes you laugh, what you dream about when you're falling asleep. I want to know all of it." "Blue," Amelia replied, smiling so wide her cheeks hurt. "The color of the ocean just before sunset. And you make me laugh. Your dry sense of humor. The way you act like you're not funny when you're actually hilarious. And lately, I dream about meeting you." "You dream about meeting me? Is that too forward?" "It's perfect because I dream about meeting you too." They stayed up until 3 o'clock a.m. That night, trading confessions and dreams, favorite memories and deepest fears. Amelia learned that Nathan played piano when he was stressed, that he'd never been in love before, that he sometimes felt like he was living someone else's life. Nathan discovered that Amelia sang in the shower, that she made the world's worst coffee despite working in a cafe for 2 years, that she had a laugh that could probably power a small city if someone could figure out how to harness it. "I have a confession," Nathan typed as the sun was beginning to rise. "Tell me. I've never felt about anyone the way I'm starting to feel about you, and we've never even met." Amelia's heart soared and plummeted at the same time. She was falling for him, too, harder and faster than she'd ever fallen for anyone. But how could you love someone you'd never seen? How could you build a relationship on text messages and late-night confessions? "I feel the same way," she admitted. "It scares me how much I look forward to your messages. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about before I fall asleep. Then maybe it's time we met in person." Amelia stared at those words, her pulse racing. Part of her desperately wanted to say yes, to finally put a face to the man who'd captured her heart with nothing but kindness and conversation. But another part of her was terrified. What if the magic they'd found in their words didn't translate to real life? What if he was disappointed when he saw her? What if this beautiful connection they'd built came crashing down the moment reality intruded? "I want to," she typed honestly, "but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of losing this. What we have right now is perfect. What if meeting in person ruins it?" "Amelia, nothing could ruin what we have. And I think you might be surprised by how perfect this could become. You really want to meet me?" "More than I've ever wanted anything." Amelia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Love required courage, and if medical school had taught her anything, it was that the most worthwhile things in life required taking risks. "Okay," she typed. "Let's meet. Really. Really. But somewhere public. I may be falling for you, but I'm not stupid. Smart and beautiful. I'm a lucky man. You think I'm beautiful, and you've never seen me. I can tell. It's in everything you write, everything you are. Beauty like yours comes from the inside out." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes, but for once they were tears of joy rather than desperation. In a few short weeks, this incredible man had become essential to her happiness. She was about to meet the person who'd saved her dreams and stolen her heart. She had no idea she was about to fall in love with someone who would change not just her circumstances, but her entire world. Chapter 5. When lightning strikes. Amelia changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple but elegant navy dress that brought out her amber eyes and hugged her curves perfectly. She'd spent an hour on her hair, letting her natural curls fall in soft waves around her shoulders, and applied just enough makeup to highlight her features without appearing overdone. Her hands trembled as she applied lip gloss one final time. Meeting at Rosé Cafe at 2 p.m. Nathan had texted that morning. "I'll be the nervous guy in the corner, probably checking my phone every 30 seconds. How will I recognize you?" Amelia had replied, her stomach doing flips. "You'll know." And somehow she believed him. The cafe Nathan had chosen was in the Arts District, a cozy place with exposed brick walls, local artwork, and an atmosphere that invited long conversations. Amelia arrived 15 minutes early, her pulse hammering as she scanned the space. A few couples sat at small tables. A woman with a laptop worked in one corner, and an elderly man read a newspaper by the window. But no, Nathan. Amelia ordered a latte she was too nervous to drink and claimed a table near the window, checking her phone obsessively. What if he didn't show? What if he changed his mind? What if this whole thing had been some elaborate joke? At exactly 2 p.m., the cafe door opened, and Amelia's entire world shifted. The man who walked in was nothing like what she'd imagined, yet somehow exactly what she'd hoped for. He was tall, probably 6'2", with broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal gray sweater perfectly. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd run his fingers through it nervously. And when he turned to scan the cafe, Amelia saw the slate-blue eyes she'd imagined so many times. But it was more than his physical beauty that made her breath catch. It was the way he moved with quiet confidence, the way his gaze swept the room with intelligence and caution, the way his mouth curved into the hint of a smile when their eyes met across the crowded space. Nathan froze the moment he saw her. Every rational thought fled his mind as he took in the vision sitting by the window. Warm brown skin that seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight, eyes like warm amber that held intelligence, kindness, and something that made his chest tight with longing. Her smile was radiant, lighting up her entire face and making him forget why he'd spent 30 years thinking he understood what beauty meant. For several heartbeats, they simply stared at each other across the cafe, the space between them crackling with electricity. Amelia felt like she was drowning in those blue eyes, and Nathan felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Finally, Nathan moved toward her table, his steps deliberate, but his pulse racing like a teenager's. Amelia stood as he approached, and when they were finally face to face, the intensity of their connection was almost overwhelming. "Amelia," Nathan said, and his voice was exactly what she'd imagined, deep, warm, with just a hint of roughness that made her skin tingle. "Nathan," she breathed, and the way his name sounded on her lips made something primal surge in his chest. For a moment, they just stood there, drinking each other in. Amelia had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, and Nathan found himself fighting the urge to reach out and touch her face to make sure she was real. Nathan started, then stopped, shaking his head with a soft laugh. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You say that like you imagined me often." "Every day," Nathan admitted without hesitation. "Every single day." The honesty in his voice made Amelia's knees weak. They stood there for another long moment, lost in each other's eyes, until Amelia finally laughed. A sound like music that made Nathan's heart skip several beats. "Should we sit down before we cause a scene?" she suggested, though part of her wanted to keep standing close enough to count the flecks of silver in his eyes. "Right, yes," Nathan said, moving to pull out her chair. The simple gesture was so natural, so gentlemanly, that Amelia felt another piece of her heart tumble into his hands. When they were seated across from each other, Nathan reached for his coffee and immediately knocked over the sugar dispenser, sending white granules scattering across the table. "Smooth," he muttered, his cheeks reddening as he tried to clean up the mess. Amelia laughed again, the sound making Nathan's clumsiness worth every second of embarrassment. "You know, for a billionaire tech mogul, you're surprisingly human." Nathan's hand stilled. "Billionaire. I may have Googled you," Amelia admitted, her own cheeks flushing. "Nathan Bennett, CEO of Bennett Enterprises. I have to say, your Wikipedia page doesn't do you justice. You researched me." Nathan's voice held a mixture of amusement and something else, vulnerability, maybe even fear. "Don't look so worried," Amelia said gently. "I didn't find any secret wife or criminal history. Just a very successful businessman who apparently donates more money to charity in a year than most people see in a lifetime." Nathan relaxed slightly. "I was afraid you'd find out about my obsession with terrible reality television shows." "Oh, that's not on Wikipedia," Amelia teased. "What's your guilty pleasure? Bachelor in Paradise? Real Housewives?" "Baking competitions," Nathan admitted with a sheepish grin. "I have no idea how to cook anything more complicated than cereal, but I can tell you everything about the proper technique for tempering chocolate." Amelia burst into laughter, and Nathan felt like he'd won the lottery just hearing that sound. "That's adorable. I would never have guessed. What about you? Any hidden addictions I should know about?" "Korean dramas," Amelia confessed. "I've cried over fictional characters more times than I can count. My sister thinks I'm insane." "You have a sister?" "Zoe. She's 17 and about 1,000 times cooler than I'll ever be. She wants to be a filmmaker." Amelia's face lit up when she talked about her family, and Nathan found himself falling even deeper into those warm eyes. "Tell me about her," Nathan said, settling back in his chair. "Tell me about all of them." And Amelia did. She told him about Zoe's dreams and attitude, about her father's 3 jobs and unshakable optimism, about her mother's strength and endless capacity for love. Nathan listened to every word, asking questions that showed he genuinely cared about the people who mattered to Amelia. In return, Nathan shared stories he'd never told anyone, about the loneliness of his childhood, the weight of expectations, the way success had isolated him from genuine connections. Amelia listened without judgment, her eyes full of understanding and something that looked like affection. "You know what's funny?" Amelia said after Nathan finished telling her about his first disastrous board meeting at 18. "When I was researching you, I kept thinking about how intimidating you must be in person. Powerful, commanding, probably a little scary." And now Amelia studied his face, the laugh lines around his eyes, the way he listened with his whole body, the gentle way he'd cleaned up his spilled sugar without making a fuss. "Now I think you're just a man who learned to be strong because he had to be, but who's actually incredibly kind underneath all that power." Nathan felt something crack open in his chest. "Amelia, what? I need you to know something." Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. "I've dated women who wanted my money, women who wanted my connections, women who wanted to be seen with me for the status. But no one has ever looked at me the way you're looking at me right now." "How am I looking at you?" "Like you see me, the real me, not the public version or the business persona, just me." Amelia reached across the table without thinking, covering his hand with hers. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up both their arms, and Nathan turned his hand palm up to intertwine their fingers. "I do see you," Amelia said softly. "I've been seeing you for weeks, Nathan, in every message, every conversation, every moment of kindness you've shown me. The man sitting across from me is exactly who I thought you'd be." Nathan lifted their joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to Amelia's knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. The gesture was so tender, so intimate, that Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. "I want to know everything about you," Nathan said against her skin. "Every dream, every fear, every moment that made you who you are." "We have time," Amelia whispered, though part of her wanted to tell him everything right now, wanted to pour out her entire soul across this small cafe table. "Do we?" Nathan asked, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "Because right now it feels like I've waited my whole life to meet you, and a few hours isn't nearly enough." Amelia felt her heart race at the intensity in his voice. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want this afternoon to end. I want to take you to dinner, and then maybe walk through the city until the sun comes up. I want to show you my favorite places and hear about yours. I want to learn whether you're as amazing in person as you are in text messages. And if I am?" Nathan's smile was soft, but held promises that made Amelia's pulse flutter. "Then I'm going to fall completely and irrevocably in love with you, Amelia." Amelia breathed, but she didn't know how to finish that sentence. Because looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers, she realized she was already halfway there herself. "Too much?" Nathan asked, reading the overwhelmed expression on her face. "No," Amelia said quickly. "Not too much, just unexpected. I came here thinking I was meeting a friend, someone who'd help me out of a difficult situation." And now Amelia looked at their joined hands, at the way he was watching her with such intensity, at the way her entire body hummed with awareness of him. "Now I'm thinking I might be in serious trouble. The best kind of trouble." Amelia met his eyes and smiled, her decision made, the very best kind. Yes to dinner. Yes to walking around the city. Yes to all of it. Nathan's answering smile was brilliant enough to power the entire cafe. "Then let's get started on Forever." Chapter 6. Falling into Forever. Their first date lasted 14 hours. Nathan took Amelia to dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and wine bottles covered in candle wax. They talked through 3 courses and 2 bottles of wine, their conversation flowing as naturally as if they'd known each other for years. Amelia told him about her first day of medical school, how she'd been so nervous she'd thrown up in the parking lot. Nathan shared his terror during his first business presentation when he'd been so intimidated by the board that he'd accidentally called the chairman Dad. After dinner, They walked through the city streets hand in hand, stopping to listen to street musicians and window shop at closed boutiques. When Amelia shivered in the cool evening air, Nathan immediately shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. The gesture was simple, but the careful attention to her comfort made Amelia's pulse flutter. "You don't have to take care of me," she said softly as they paused under a streetlight. "I want to," Nathan replied, adjusting the jacket around her. "I've never wanted to take care of someone the way I want to take care of you." They found themselves at the waterfront as the sun began to rise, sitting on a bench overlooking the harbor. Amelia was curled against Nathan's side, his arm around her shoulders, both of them exhausted but reluctant to let the night end. "I should probably go home," Amelia murmured against his chest, though she made no move to leave. "Probably," Nathan agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "But I don't want you to." "What do you want?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "I want to spend every day getting to know you better. I want to hear your voice when I wake up, and be the last person you talk to before you fall asleep. I want to watch you become the incredible doctor I know you're going to be." Amelia tilted her head to look at him, surprised by the intensity in his voice. "Nathan, I know it's crazy," he said quickly. "We just met in person today. But, Amelia, I've never felt anything like this before. Being with you feels like coming home." Amelia reached up to touch his face, her thumb tracing the line of his jaw. "It's not crazy. I feel it too." When Nathan finally drove her home in a sleek black car that probably cost more than her parents' house, Amelia found herself reluctant to get out. They sat in the driveway for another hour, talking and laughing, until her parents' bedroom light came on. "I should go," Amelia said, though her hand was still in his. "When can I see you again?" Nathan asked. "When do you want to see me again? Now? Tomorrow? Every day for the rest of my life?" Amelia laughed, but her heart was racing. "I have classes tomorrow. Advanced pathology at 9 o'clock, clinical skills lab at 2. What time does your last class end?" 4:30. "I'll pick you up at 4:30. Amelia stared at him. "Nathan, you can't just rearrange your entire schedule around mine. Don't you have a company to run?" Nathan brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "The company will survive. Right now, the only thing that matters is spending time with you." The next day, Amelia found herself checking her phone constantly during lectures, reading and rereading Nathan's good morning text. When she walked out of her final class, he was there, leaning against his car with a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite, though she couldn't remember telling him that. "How did you know?" she asked, burying her face in the bright blooms. "You mentioned them in one of your texts," Nathan said, looking pleased with himself. "You said your grandmother grew them in her garden." The fact that he'd remembered such a small detail made Amelia's chest tight with emotion. "You pay attention to everything, don't you?" "When it comes to you?" "Absolutely." This became their routine. Every day after classes, Nathan would be waiting for her. Sometimes he'd take her to lunch at hole-in-the-wall restaurants she'd never heard of. Other times they'd visit museums or art galleries. Nathan watching Amelia more than the exhibits, fascinated by her reactions to everything around her. One afternoon, Amelia emerged from her biochemistry lecture to find Nathan talking animatedly with Dr. Emily Wong, her favorite professor. Both of them looked up as she approached, wearing expressions that made Amelia immediately suspicious. What's going on?" Amelia asked, looking between them. "Mr. Bennett was just telling me about the research facility his company is funding. Dr. Wong said with a smile, the one that's going to focus on developing more affordable medical equipment for underserved communities." Amelia's eyes widened as she turned to Nathan. "You're funding medical research?" Nathan's cheeks reddened slightly. "It's not a big deal. I just thought, with your passion for helping people who can't afford proper health care, maybe there was a way I could contribute." "Not a big deal, Dr. Wong interjected. "Mr. Bennett, this is a $20 million commitment to medical research. I'd say that's quite a big deal." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. Nathan had listened to her talk about healthcare inequality and had decided to do something about it, not just write a check, but fund actual research that could change lives. "Why didn't you tell me?" Amelia asked as they walked away from the building. "Because I didn't want you to think I was trying to impress you," Nathan said honestly. I wanted to do it because it mattered to you, not because I thought it would make you like me more." Amelia stopped walking and turned to face him. "Nathan Bennett." "Yes, you're incredible, Amelia Carter." "Yes. You're going to make me fall completely in love with you if you keep looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you." Amelia stepped closer, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. "Because you are." Their first kiss happened right there on the university quad, with students walking past and Nathan's expensive car parked in a no-parking zone. Amelia rose up on her tiptoes just as Nathan cupped her face in his hands.